Air Force Manual 11202 Volume 3, Flight Operations. Chapter 1, Overview. This manual provides broad guidance for aircraft operations. It is consolidated to help aviators to identify and synthesize potentially applicable standards and procedures and to understand application and waiver authority. General guidance cannot address every situation. Therefore, major commands, MAJCOMs, and wing commanders should provide additional guidance further supporting safe aircraft operations. In the absence of specific guidance, aircrew will seek clarification and use sound judgment. This manual consolidates guidance for pilots, such as found in the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, Department of Defense, DoD, directives and instructions, and other USAF guidance for pilots. Supplemental information to this AFMAN may be found in applicable MAJCOM supplements. Unmanned Aircraft System, UAS, or Remotely Piloted Aircraft Applicability. Category 4 and 5 UAS operations shall follow this AFMAN. AFMAN 11502 Small Unmanned Aircraft Systems shall govern Category 1 through 3 Small UAS operations. UAS categories are listed in AFMAN 11502. Basic Civil Aviation Information for the National Airspace System, NAS, available in the Aeronautical Information Manual, AIM, is not duplicated in this manual. Additional information is available in FAA-H 8083-15, Instrument Flying Handbook, FAA-H 8083-16, Instrument Procedures Handbook, and FAA-H 8083-25, Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. Federal Aviation Administration FAA handbooks and resources may be found at www.faa.gov/regulations-policies/handbooks-manuals/aviation. Differences between USAF and FAA aviation information are provided in this manual. International Civil Aviation Organization ICAO aviation information, which military pilots must observe when practical and compatible with the mission, is also duplicated for ease of access. When compliance with ICAO procedures is not practical and consistent with the mission, U.S. military pilots must operate with due regard in accordance with Flight Information Publication, FLIP, General Planning, Chapter 8. Items that are specific to the NAS are annotated accordingly. This manual provides broad guidance for Air Force flying under most circumstances. Pilots should exercise sound judgment to safely conduct flying operations if something is not expressly prohibited in this manual. The intended audience for this manual is winged post-undergraduate pilot training USAF pilots. Basic flight fundamentals are described in Attachment 2, Attachment 3, Attachment 4, Attachment 5, FAA-H 8083-3, Airplane Flying Handbook, FAA-H 8083-25, Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, and FAA-H 8083-16, Instrument Procedures Handbook. Pilots must reference and be familiar with the specific references to the AIM contained within this manual. References other than the AIM are for information and educational use only and are not in all circumstances binding on military aircraft operations. Questions about the applicability of any cited references or documents contained herein to specific activities should be routed through the applicable MAJCOM A3 channels to Headquarters Air Force Flight Standards Agency, AFFSA. HQ AFFSA shall in turn seek clarification regarding applicability from the relevant USAF legal office. All references are provided inside square brackets and listed without any applicable suffix or version. References at the beginning of a paragraph apply to the entire paragraph. References at the end of a sentence apply only to that sentence. This manual is current as of its publication date for the references in Attachment 1. However, if a newer version is current, then pilots should refer to the current version. E.g., FAA Order 8260.3E is referenced and FAA Order 8260.3F is current. Note, for AIM references, the intent is the subject paragraph reference, not simply the number. Example: if the FAA revises AIM 5-4-1 Standard Terminal Arrival Star Procedures to 5-5-1, The intent is to reference the STAR procedure's information, not simply the paragraph number. This manual uses the generic term Aircraft Flight Manual to refer to all MDS instructions, technical orders, and/or flight manuals that govern the MDS operation. When referencing the pilot in command, PIC, throughout this manual, the PIC is the final authority for the compliance statements. The PIC may delegate a task, but retains responsibility for compliance. MAJCOMs may reference FAA documents listed in Attachment 1 when developing training, guidance, and operational execution procedures to comply with the intent of this manual. Advisory Circular AC 20-131, Airworthiness Approval of Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance Systems, TCAS-2 and Mode S transponders. AC 20-138, Airworthiness Approval of Positioning and Navigation Systems. AC 20-140, Guidelines for Design Approval of Aircraft Data Link Communication Systems Supporting Air Traffic Services, ATS. AC 20-150, Airworthiness Approval of Satellite Voice, SAT Voice Equipment Supporting Air Traffic Service, ATS Communication. AC 20-151, Airworthiness Approval of Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance Systems, TCAS-2 versions 7.0 and 7.1, and associated Mode S transponders. AC 20-165, Airworthiness Approval of Automatic Dependent Surveillance, Broadcast Out Systems. AC 20-167, Airworthiness Approval of Enhanced Vision System, Synthetic Vision System, Combined Vision System, and Enhanced Flight Vision System equipment. AC 20-172, Airworthiness Approval for Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, ADS-B, in systems and applications. AC 90-23, Aircraft Wake Turbulence. AC 90-91, North American Route Program. AC 90-96, Approval of U.S. operators and aircraft to operate under Instrument Flight Rules, IFR, in European airspace designated for Basic Area Navigation, BRNAV, and Precision Area Navigation, PRNAV. AC 90-100A, U.S. Terminal and En Route Area Navigation, RNAV operations. AC 90-101, Approval Guidance for Required Area Navigation Performance, RNP procedures, with Authorization Required, AR. AC 90-105, Approval Guidance for RNP operations and barometric vertical navigation in the U.S. National Airspace System and in oceanic and remote continental airspace. AC 90-106, Enhanced Flight Vision Systems. AC 90-107, Guidance for Localizer Performance with Vertical Guidance and Localizer Performance without Vertical Guidance Approach Operations in the U.S. National Airspace System. AC 90-108, Use of Suitable Area Navigation, RNAV systems on conventional routes and procedures. AC 90-114, Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast Operations. AC 90-117, Data Link Communications. AC 91-70, Oceanic and Remote Continental Airspace Operations. AC 91-85, Authorization of Aircraft and Operators for Flight in Reduced Vertical Separation Minimum, RVSM, airspace. AC 120-28, Criteria for Approval of Category 3 Weather Minima for Takeoff, Landing, and Rollout. AC 120-29, Criteria for Approval of Category 1 and Category 2 Weather Minima for Approach. AC 120-76, Authorization for Use of Electronic Flight Bags. ICAO Document 8400, ICAO Abbreviations and Codes. Title 14, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 1, Definitions and Abbreviations, Current Edition. Title 14, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 91, General Operating and Flight Rules, Current Edition. Title 14, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 121, Operating Requirements, Domestic, Flag, and Supplemental Operations, Current Edition. Title 14, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 135, operating requirements, commuter and on-demand operations, and rules governing persons on board such aircraft, current edition. Flight operations in international airspace. International airspace exists over the high seas at any point greater than 12 nautical miles from baseline of coastal state. See FLIP GP for DoD policy and procedures for flight operations in international airspace. Note: aircrew operating in U.S. military aircraft within international airspace will ensure aircraft do not comply with a state's requirements for those areas the United States considers excessive claims under international law. See the Maritime Claims Reference Manual for a summary of claims considered excessive, http://www.jag.navy.mil/organization/code 10mcrm.htm. Flight operation in foreign airspace. ICAO member states publish their exceptions to ICAO publications in their individual Aeronautical Information Publication, AIP. Pertinent information from these AIPs should be extracted into the FLIP Area Planning, AP, and the Foreign Clearance Guide, FCG. Refer to diplomatic clearances and the FCG for specific guidance on operation in foreign sovereign airspace. Sovereignty of U.S. military aircraft. DoD aircraft commanders must not authorize any exercise of jurisdiction by foreign authorities except by direction of the appropriate DoD component headquarters or the U.S. Embassy. U.S. military aircraft are sovereign instrumentalities. When they have received diplomatic clearance to land in foreign territory, it is the U.S. principle to assert that they are entitled to the same privileges and immunities customarily accorded to warships. Privileges and immunities include, in the absence of stipulations to the contrary, exemption from duties and taxation, immunity from search, seizure, and inspections, including customs and safety inspections, and any other exercise of jurisdiction by the host nation over the aircraft or the personnel, equipment, or cargo on board. Flight operations within the NAS. The NAS is the airspace, air navigation facilities, and airfields of the United States. It includes components shared jointly with the military and all associated information, services, rules, regulations, policies, procedures, personnel, and equipment. Note: military aircraft comply with the laws, regulations, and rules which pertain to aircraft operations. Many regulations and rules address only civil aircraft operations, which does not include military or other public aircraft. Some civil aviation rules are implemented by the DoD as a matter of principle, to which exceptions apply. Waivers. Refer to DAFI 33-360 for waiver guidance. The Director of Operations, AF A30, is the waiver authority for any non-tiered directive guidance in this manual. MAJCOMs, or subordinate units for Tier 2 and Tier 3 waivers, initiate and staff all waiver packages. Coordination through the Air Force Flight Standards Agency Flight Directives Division, AFFSA XOF, is required for Tier 0 and Tier 1 waivers and recommended for Tier 2 and Tier 3 waivers. AFFSA XOF will pursue external agency approval for Tier 0 waivers and provide results for the requesting MAJCOM, e.g., an exemption granted by the FAA administrator. Waivers to utilize a current or renewed external agency exemption must be approved by the MAJCOM Director of Operations, MAJCOM A3. If a new MAJCOM A3 is appointed, the waiver must be reapproved by them. MAJCOMs will forward a copy of AF Form 679, Air Force Publication Compliance, Item Waiver Request Approval with MAJCOM A3 approval within 10 days to the HQ AFFSA XOF for tracking purposes. Note: half A30 concurrence on the AF Form 679 is not required for renewed waivers to existing FAA exemptions. Current exemptions are available in the AFFSA XOF SharePoint, https://usaf.dps.mil/sites/site pages/flight directives.aspx. Accomplish all waivers using the AF Form 679. Wings will send a consolidated list of approved waivers to MAJCOM Standardization Evaluation and AFFSA XOF by the last day of each quarter. Violations. A violation, pilot deviation, may result when a USAF aircraft deviates from a flight rule. FAA Air Traffic Control ATC deviation reports involving USAF aircraft are processed by the Air Force representative to the FAA, AFREP, in accordance with Department of the Air Force Manual, AFMAN 13-201. USAF ATC deviation reports involving USAF aircraft are processed in accordance with AFI 91-202, the U.S. Air Force Mishap Prevention Program. Violations that occur in the airspace of foreign nations are processed in accordance with the procedures of that nation. If a unit or pilot is notified by an air traffic controller or AFREP of the possible pilot deviation, the unit or pilot shall preserve any available evidence for a minimum of 180 days and contact the FREP prior to disposal. For any communications involving any alleged violation, utilize aircraft call sign only and do not release any aircrew member information to non-USAF agencies without the permission of the AFREP in coordination with the MAJCOM A3 or AF-A30. Deviations. An ATC clearance is not authority to deviate from this manual. In an in-flight emergency requiring immediate action, the PIC may deviate from any rule to the extent required to meet that emergency. When deviating from an ATC clearance, notify ATC of the action taken as soon as possible. Note: in the event of a deviation from a flight rule, or when given traffic priority by ATC in an emergency, the PIC will verbally report the incident to a supervisor or commander and prepare a detailed written record within 24 hours or as soon as mission permits. Aviation safety reporting. Potential hazards to aviation safety should be reported via the Military Aviation Safety Action Program, ASAP, https://asap.safety.af.mil. Personnel will report incidents involving damage to aircraft, personal injury, or intentional disregard of orders or instructions, whether reported to ASAP or not, to a flight safety officer as soon as possible. Report hazardous air traffic events in accordance with AFMAN 91-223, Aviation Safety Investigations and Reports. Airworthiness. See AFI 62-601, USAF Airworthiness.